it. The silent clock tower felt like a tomb. Pipkin and Alara stood at its base, having called what was left of their community to a meeting. They were met with hollow-eyed suspicion. Gnomes clutched their golden trinkets, their faces etched with paranoia. Hostile whispers followed Pipkin as he stepped onto the base of the clock. "Friends, neighbors," his voice faltered, then grew stronger. "Look around you. The clock is silent. Our work is undone. Our friendships are broken. This is the work of the trinkets. They are not treasures. They are a poison." A gnome scoffed, polishing a golden acorn. "You're just jealous." Pipkin knew words were not enough. He had to show them. With a deep breath, he took out his own most cherished possession, his memory locket. He held it up for all to see, its warm, gentle light a stark contrast to the cold gleam of gold. "This holds the memory of the footbridge," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "It is my most prized creation." Then he turned and threw it into the cold, waiting forge that sat beside the tower. He followed it with his finest tools, his most intricate clockwork creations, everything he valued. The clatter of metal on stone was shockingly loud in the silence. His act of sacrifice, of true loss, sent a ripple through the crowd. A few of the older gnomes, those who remembered the burrows before the gold fever, flinched as if waking from a dream. Alara stepped forward, her calm voice explaining the nature of the gilded drain, her pragmatic words lending weight to Pipkin's impassioned plea. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, hesitantly, old Elmsworth shuffled forward. With a trembling hand, he placed the small wooden bird Pipkin had just fixed, the bird with its rediscovered song, onto the growing pile. "Its song is better when it's shared," he mumbled. It was a small, fragile start, but in the growing pile of cherished, selfless things, the last ember of their community began to glow once more. Convincing the others was a slow, heartbreaking process. It was a campaign fought not with weapons, but with desperate sincerity. Pipkin and Alara went from burrow to burrow. They didn't argue or demand, they reminded. To the weaver, Pipkin spoke of the day her son was lost in the deep woods and how the entire village had lit lanterns and searched together, their combined light a beacon of shared shine that guided him home. He didn't ask for her golden needles. He asked her to remember the feeling of that shared light. The next morning, the needles were on the pile. To the baker, Alara spoke of the winter fever, when he had worked for 3 days without sleep, baking nourishing broth for the sick. She reminded him of the silent gratitude in their eyes, a currency far richer than any bargain. The next day, his prized copper measuring cups, a gift from his father, joined the forge pile. Each small victory was a triumph. Each refusal was a stab of pain. Many gnomes, too deep in the fever, snarled at them, holding their trinkets tighter. But with every object added to the pile, the soft glow of shared shine grew, creating a small haven of warmth and sanity in the cold, silent village. They were not just collecting objects, they were collecting the stories and memories attached to them, gathering the last embers of their community to light one, final, defiant fire. The roar of the forge was a defiant shout in the silent village. A small group of gnomes, their faces grim with determination, worked around it. The heat was immense, but it was the psychic pressure that was the true test. A cold, insidious whisper emanated from the edge of the woods, from the grinning heart, magnifying every flicker of doubt, every pang of greed. "Is that ladle really worth giving up? That locket was so beautiful. Take it back. It's yours." Pipkin, hammering a piece of molten metal that had once been a beloved music box, felt the pull. He saw the golden gleam in his mind's eye, felt the seductive call of possessing something just for himself. He shook his head, sweat and tears stinging his eyes, and brought the hammer down harder, the ring of true metal against true metal, a prayer against the curse. At the most critical moment, as they prepared for the final pour, a figure stumbled out of the darkness. It was Bramble, his face a mask of torment. He was caught between two worlds, his hands twitching, his eyes darting from the forge to the shadows. Then, with a final, agonized cry that seemed to tear itself from the depths of his soul, he pulled out his golden locket. It was pulsing with a vile, hungry light. "It lied to me," he sobbed, and with a final act of will, he threw it into the crucible. The locket dissolved with a high-pitched shriek, like a dying thing. The molten metal in the crucible, which had been glowing orange, suddenly flared with a soft, warm, living light, the color of sunrise and hope. The curse was broken. They poured the metal. They hammered and shaped it. The new heart cog did not gleam like gold. It glowed. The new cog was heavy, not just with metal, but with the weight of all the memories forged within it. It pulsed with a gentle, living warmth. Carrying it between them, Pipkin, Alara, and a half-dozen other gnomes raced to the clock tower. As they entered the silent spire, a chilling wind swept down the stairs, carrying the smooth, oily voice of Silas Vane. Such a beautiful effort. Such a poignant display of futility. He stood at the top of the stairs, blocking their path. He looked more solid than before, energized by the conflict and despair he had sown. "That little light of yours is a candle against a hurricane," he purred, his gilded grin seeming to stretch wider. "The heart is always hungry. It will feed on your hope just as easily as your greed." "We are not afraid of you," Alara said, her voice ringing with the strength of the earth. Silas laughed, a dry, rattling sound. "You should be." He gestured, and the shadows in the corners of the tower seemed to deepen and coalesce, forming grasping, ephemeral shapes. Pipkin didn't hesitate. "Go," he yelled to the others, holding up the glowing cog. Its warm light drove the shadows back. "Get it to the top. We'll hold him off." The gnomes scrambled past, carrying their precious burden, while Pipkin and Alara stood their ground, a tinker and an herbalist against a creature of ancient hunger. The confrontation was not one of physical strength, but of will. Silas Vane did not attack them with claws or teeth. He attacked them with whispers, with visions of their deepest fears and insecurities. But Pipkin and Alara held firm, anchored by their shared purpose. High above, the others reached the clock's chamber. With practiced hands, they cleared the mechanism. As they fitted the new heart cog into the central axle, it clicked into place with a sound of profound rightness. A wave of warm, pure energy, the very essence of shared shine, erupted from the tower. It was not a violent blast, but a gentle, pervasive wave of warmth and memory. It washed over the whispering burrows, touching every burrow, every gnome. Across the village, every single gilded Grin trinket instantly tarnished, the light within them extinguishing as they turned to dull, worthless lead. In the tower, Silas Vane shrieked. The wave of pure, selfless energy was poison to him. His form began to unravel, the gilded Grin cracking and peeling away to fully reveal the tormented gnome face beneath. "Thank you," the face whispered, a single tear cutting a path through the dissolving dust. His power source, the misery of the gnomes, had been severed. He crumbled, his form dissolving into a shower of fine, glittering dust that was quickly swept away by a sudden, clean breeze. And then came the sound, cutting a path through the dissolving dust. A deep, resonant thump that echoed through the roots of the great tree, followed by a steady, powerful tuck. The heart of the village was beating once more. A few days later, a quiet industry had returned to the whispering burrows. Gnomes worked together, cleaning up the piles of useless lead trinkets that littered their homes. The mood was not celebratory. It was somber, reflective, and deeply changed. The hum of the village was back, but it was softer now, imbued with a new, hard-won wisdom. They were talking again, rebuilding trust one hesitant conversation, one shared cup of tea at a time. The weaver taught others her patterns. The baker once again left bread for all. They were less naive, forever aware of the darkness they had so easily welcomed inside, and of the strength they had found to banish it. Pipkin stood with a quiet, remorseful bramble at the base of the heartwood clock. The new cog glowed with a soft, steady light from within the mechanism, a visible reminder of their sacrifice and their salvation. Together, without needing words, they began the daily maintenance, checking the weights and oiling the gears. Their friendship was not what it had been. The scars of their ordeal remained. But like a broken pot carefully mended, it was healing, perhaps even stronger in the broken places. Pipkin finished his work and placed a hand on the warm wood of the tower. He closed his eyes and just listened. Thump, talk, thump, talk. The sound was the same as it had always been, yet it was entirely new. It was the sound of community, the sound of a shared heart. It was a sound he, and all the gnomes of the Whispering Burrows, would never again take for granted.